Like a lot of Year 12 students, Jack's already feeling the pressure in the lead up to exams.
I want to do law, which is quite unfortunate because that's a very high ATAR for me. If I make one mistake, it could be a bad grade and that could not make me get my 90 or whatever it is ATAR that I need, which I think kind of feeds into my nervousness for them and definitely makes me more anxious to be able to get around to them.
But Jack says there's another factor behind his study stress, balancing exam prep with his after-school job.
Cost of living is getting worse and it's going to be harder to be able to balance that ability to be able to afford different things and being able to study and make sure that you've got the best amount of time.
According to a new survey from youth mental health service ReachOut, almost a quarter of students say they're worried about balancing study with work, given the high cost of living. Emily Smith is a youth peer support worker. She says there's definitely an uptick in students looking for help with stress at this time of year. But she says the concerns around giving up work to study have increased.
As a young person, you might have a car, you might have like petrol, you also have to eat, and it's like, in order to do that, young people will often have to work, and it's like, how do they have that like balance around like being able to get an income whilst also handling all the load of how much work is around study and exams.
Jack works as a waiter and he's cutting back on shifts to fit in more study time, which also means he's missing out on weekend rates. He says that money normally helps him take some of the load off his family, including paying for his own pre-university courses, which aren't supported by government funding.
I paid for a solid amount and that my job helped with that. The loss of shifts does hurt, like getting that paycheck and seeing that number decrease because of the amount of time that you've had to spend studying instead of working is a very common story, and it's something that I can already see with some of my friends and myself.
Other students also reported high levels of study stress because they're worried about how their exam results will affect their future, like not getting the job they want or not leading the life they planned.
I think the pressure is on. I've got high expectations of myself personally, and because medicine is such a competitive field, I have to make sure that I'm doing things, staying on track and trying to maintain the highest grades as possible. I guess that's quite a big stress.
All this pressure and stress around study can really take a toll before even getting to the actual exams.
I've definitely been staying up later than I probably should be, trying to study, get work done.
My brain puts all its focus on thinking about how stressed I am, that I do even less working or studying on things, and it just snowballs out of control. And I think that's not good.
For some students, your stress is really, really significant and stops them from being able to go to school or makes them really unhappy. It might make them start to feel depressed or actually start to experience anxiety.
Viviana Wuthridge is a professor of clinical psychology at Macquarie Uni. She's created a program for schools all about helping senior students get through the toughest parts of the year.
So Viv, what are your best tips for how to manage study stress?
Yeah, so what they can do to balance the study stress when they're having to work as well is really about just being very organised in their day. So make a bit of a plan, work out when your exams are coming, when you're going to study for which particular subject. Make sure you study first and then reward yourself for studying. It is impossible to study 24/7 in the lead up to these exams. We know that when you try that, you will get burnt out. Exercise. Exercise burns up the cortisol, which is a stress hormone in your body. So if you're feeling really stressed, burn up some of that extra stress energy. Most importantly, watch what you're saying to yourself in your head. That's the thing that drives the stress. So when you start saying, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, I'm dumb, people are going to judge me, that has got to stop.
And the main thing Viv says to remember is if you're struggling with exam stress, you're not alone. And your results don't have to decide your future.
Because it really is not the be-all and end-all. And so many people go on to have such great careers that it had nothing to do with the mark that they got in Year 12.
There's still so many different ways to be able to get into what you want to do. So don't worry too much about exams. Aim for the best outcome for yourself, but don't worry, your life doesn't close if you don't do well in them.